So what got me into the coaching world, I was telling you earlier, Kevin, like I never thought about leadership. I never thought about coaching. I had no idea about mentoring. My dad was working all the time. He didn't mentor me. He managed me and he managed his people. But what I didn't understand and what I didn't learn until later in life was that my dad was actually practicing servant leadership from the day I can remember. My dad never asked any of his employees to do anything that he wouldn't do. And a lot of times my dad did it anyway, side by side with those people.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Wynn, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Kevin, and today we are joined by Mike Warren. He's been in the coaching biz for 26 plus years. He is the founder of Alethea. Hopefully I said that right. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you, Kevin. Nice to be here. Appreciate you having me.
It's nice to interview you, honestly, because I was talking about pre-podcast, we were talking about all your interests, you're into cameras, and we were talking about your background prior to coaching. And so I would love to hear the origin story, the lore. You could have been a guitarist, you could have been a videographer, but of all the things you chose coaching. Well, what made you become a coach?
It's a very interesting story. I'll go backwards for a little bit. I'll give you my history from really kind of childhood. I was born in Southern California. My mother is 100% Greek. My dad was born in Arkansas and raised in Indiana. So I had quite the difference in culture. My grandmother lived with us until she was 92 and passed in our home. And so my first language was Greek before I even spoke English. So I grew up in a very traditional European house, even though my dad was from the U.S. My dad worked 2 jobs. He owned a business of his own, and he also worked as a buyer for 2 major grocery chains in Southern California. And he did that for 46 years. He owned his own business, like I said, which was a janitorial business. And so my dad would get up every morning at 3 a.m. He'd go and work his janitorial business. And then at 8 o'clock, he'd go to his day job. He'd work that until 4 o'clock. He'd get back in the car, drive another hour back to his janitorial business, work there till 7, 8 o'clock. And he'd come home and he would basically fall asleep in his soup and wake up and do it all over again. So I watched him do that my entire life, and I think I've seen my dad sick where he didn't go to work 2 days in my entire life. My mother came here as an immigrant. She got her citizenship. She learned English. She didn't speak a word of English when she got here. And my mother put herself through school and became a doctor. So the examples that I had growing up in my home were of high achievers and people that just worked and worked and worked and worked. And I subsequently, worked kind of the same way. And by the time I was 8, 9 years old, I was working for my dad on the weekends in the janitorial business. And, while my friends were going to the beach and riding their skateboards and bikes around the block, I was scrubbing toilets and cleaning ashtrays and taking out trash cans, mopping floors. And so I learned how to work from a very young age. And it was fun for a while until it wasn't. I subsequently ended up going into my dad's business, which was the grocery industry. And at 15, my dad helped my brother and I form a business that serviced a lot of the food warehouses in Southern California. So before and after school, kind of like my dad was doing, I was running my business. So I was going into food warehouses at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Then I was going to school. And then afterwards, I was making sure that my crews were taking care of business. And I did that all the way up until I was 28 years old when I sold the business. And so I didn't take the traditional school route. I didn't go to college right after high school. I was not a good student by any means. I barely graduated high school, and studying wasn't my jam. Making money was, and I really enjoyed that. And I got to travel all over the world. I got to go to all 50 states. I mean, I had a very fun and interesting part of my life during my teens and my 20s. And so what got me into the coaching world, it was, I was telling you earlier, Kevin, like I never thought about leadership. I never thought about coaching. I had no idea about mentoring. My dad was working all the time. He didn't mentor me. He managed me, and he managed his people. But what I didn't understand and what I didn't learn until later in life was that my dad was actually practicing servant leadership from the day I can remember. My dad never asked any of his employees to do anything that he wouldn't do. And a lot of times my dad did it anyway, side by side with those people. So as I started, learning about leadership and started learning about, mentorship and coaching and all the things that go along with this, I had to remind myself that I had great examples of this growing up, which again, in my 20s, I didn't realize it. In my 30s, I started realizing it. By the time I got to my 40s, I really understood it. And now in my late 50s, I really, I look back on all those things. My dad and I still have conversations about a lot of that stuff. And those were lessons. But what got me into coaching was after I sold my business, I took a little time off. I got married. I had a daughter, and I was recruited into the financial services world by a guy I met on a golf course. And yeah, it was weird. I was hitting balls one day, and this guy was standing next to me, and he's like, "Hey man, you're really good at this." I said, "Well, I've had a lot of practice. I haven't had to work for the last year or so." And he said, why not? I said, well, I sold my business and I'm kind of retired. And he's like, how old are you? I said, well, I'm 28, 29. He said, wow, man, that's crazy. You're already retired. I said, yeah. I said, but, I kind of don't know what to do with myself. I was tired of golfing. I was tired of traveling. I spent a lot of time around the house. And so anyway, long story short, he recruited me in, and I became a stockbroker. And very quickly, I learned that I really didn't like being a stockbroker other than for myself. I really kind of wanted to be a financial planner. I did that for a little bit and figured out I really don't want to be a financial planner either. I really like investment banking, and I like doing deals. And so I ended up moving around to a couple firms, and I was recruited by the same person a couple times to different places. And where I finally landed was a place called New England Financial, and this was before I started my financial services company alongside my coaching business. So he recruited me in, and this guy was a master at leadership. He had read every book, he taught every class, he'd been to every type of, lecture, whatever. I mean, he was just a guru on leadership. And he was pounding it in my head. He's like, Mike, I know you've been a great manager. You've done well. You've sold your own business. You managed lots and lots of people, lots of products, services. But what do you know about leadership? And I was like, I don't know, probably nothing. And so he started giving me books to read. And he was literally grooming me daily in the office. And what I didn't realize he was doing until a couple years later is he was coaching me. And he was using coaching principles to get me to engage, to get me to look at things differently, to get me to solve my own problems, and to be a better leader to the people that I was in charge of in our office. And I was second in command at that office. And so I had quite a few people that relied on me for everything from teaching them about products to sitting in their meetings to going on calls with them. I mean, it was very intensive. And again, I didn't realize that I was being coached and I was being really groomed into a leadership position. And so I sat down with him one day and I said, "Hey, man, what's my next move?" And he said, "What do you mean, what's your next move?" I said, "Unless you retire or quit or something, what's my next move? I'm not moving up on the food chain." And he kind of looked at me and he laughed. He's like, "Dude, there's no food chain in servant leadership. Zero. You are first if you are last." And I just sat there and I was like, "Whoa, man, that's crazy." I had to think about it. He said, "You don't recognize this and you don't realize this, but I have been coaching you and planting the seeds of leadership in you. So your next move is the move you're in right now, which is becoming the best leader and the best coach you can be." And so that was really when I embarked on my coaching career. It was early 2000, I think January or February of 2000. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I started reading books, and at the time, people weren't talking about coaching. Coaching wasn't certainly what it is today. It was, there weren't a lot of books on it, so I had to ask a lot of questions. And I ended up meeting another person at the golf course who took me under his wing. This guy was the former president CEO of American Brands. He was an attorney. He was also an amazing marketer and had his own advertising company. And he was just a very wholesome Christian man. And he was about 20 years my senior, 25 years my senior. And he just walked up to me on the golf course one day and he said, "I don't know what it is about you, but I recognize your ability to lead people." And literally, he walked across a giant green and said that to me. And from that day forward, I just, I had those two people in my life for many, many years that helped me understand what the transition and the transfer of knowledge and power and everything else really meant. And so I stayed with the firm for about another year, and then I decided I wanted to go off and have my own firm. And I did that. And I built a couple really, really amazing businesses in the financial service sector. And I built them all based around leadership and coaching. My leaders coached, I coached, and we used John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership as our business model. And we use servant leadership as our business model, and the two coincide amazingly together. And so during that time, I started going to places that had coaching certifications. It was still early in the game. There weren't a lot of them. But I started going, a couple times a year. I'd go to these 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-day retreats and learn different coaching techniques and how to communicate. And then I just developed my own style, which is what I call consultative coaching. And I wrote a book about it 6 years ago that I never published, which we'll get into. We can get into, but I'm now at the stage where I'm publishing it now, and it should be out in about 3 months. It's in the final stage of editing, but yeah, it's a book about consultative coaching. It's a book about how to pick a coach, what you should expect from engagements, what the ranges are of pay, what different type of coaching is out there, different type of assessments available out there, from DISC to Colby to ADCAR to PROS. I mean, there's all kinds of assessments. So I have spent the better part of my life in the coaching world and the investment banking and leadership world. And so part of my criteria when I invest in companies and when I look at companies is, are the leaders managing or leading? Are they coachable? Are they trainable? Are they open to suggestion? And if they are, then those are usually pretty big green lights for me to put money into organizations, which I've been doing for many, many years. I've had lots and lots of exits along the way, and I've based everything on the coaching model and the leadership model. So that's how I got here, and it's been such a I don't know how to explain it. It's hard. I've been asked this on other podcasts and in interviews, like, what is it? What's the feeling? And it's hard to describe. I love seeing people get to places and accomplish things that they never even dreamed possible. And that's the gift of coaching. You're able to open up somebody's mind and challenge their beliefs and challenge their thoughts and help them help themselves. And that's what I love about coaching. It's so much different than psychology, so much different than psychiatry, so much different than anything else that you would ever use. If you are a good coach, you have the ability to move people. And I've been so blessed for so long. I've worked in probably 80% of the Fortune 50 to 1,000 companies out there. I've coached in all of the Fortune 500 companies, every one of them. And I've coached levels from VP all the way up to C-level people you've seen on TV, people you see on TV currently. MSNBC, CNBC, lots of those people they have been my clients. And they'll never tell you. They don't want you to know. I can't tell you who they are because they don't want people knowing that they have been coached, but that's the truth. A lot of great leaders have coaches. And to this day, I still have a coach as well. And I talk to him probably once a month, and we just stay fresh. And that's what you got to do. You got to constantly up your game. And so that's how I got into the coaching business. Somebody groomed me, and then another person groomed me again and mentored me. And without my direct knowledge or my conscious mind, I didn't know what was going on until probably 7 or 8 years later. That's true.
And the beautiful part of it, each one was at the golf course too, so that's hilarious.
Yeah, it was weird. and coincident. Well, no coincidence, but I play golf at least 2 or 3 days a week, in a same club here in Tucson, and it's part of my life. I love it. It's one of the things in life you'll never master, no matter how good you are at it, and it's always challenging. And so I have a very active mind. I don't sleep a lot. I probably sleep between 3 to 5 hours a night if I'm lucky, because my brain is very active, and golf forces me to calm down. It forces me to relax. It forces me to think. It forces me to act. It really hits all the senses, and so it's kind of therapeutic for me, even when I'm playing crappy.
Something I'm very curious about too, like, so you're meeting all these different people. Earlier you mentioned that you're working with the VPs, the C-suites, the people that you see on TV that you probably signed an NDA with, right? What I'm curious about is like, how do these people typically find you? Is it referral? Are you doing some sort of marketing? Like, how do people find you?
For my entire life and my entire career, I've never once advertised for a client, ever. I have always been found by referral. I have been found by people on my LinkedIn. I think I have, I don't know, 16 or 17,000 people on LinkedIn. My work, I would hope and I believe, because of my success in the coaching world, has spoken for itself and speaks for itself. And so, I get a lot of referrals from clients, and once you get into some of these big corporations and you're coaching in them, if you're doing good work, they constantly hire you, and then they hire you for more people. I can't tell you how many organizations I've worked in where I started with one person and ended up with the entire leadership team or the entire management force. I mean, where it's been one person, all of a sudden I've got 20 on my plate. I have an attorney firm that I have been coaching for the last 9 years in Los Angeles. I started out with the managing partner. I have coached all 40 of the other people in the office except for one person who does not want to be coached. And it just kind of starts out like that, because the reality is that the effectiveness, the results that coaching brings, it's indisputable. You can't dispute it. If you take a person, and let's just use a calendar, if you take them in January and you're working on, let's say, 3 things with them, and by the time you get to the following January, those 3 things have improved and their production has improved, their abilities have improved, everything has improved. It's indisputable. It affects the entire organization. It affects everybody around them. And so when you do work like that, and that is the kind of work I do, when you do work that moves people, other people notice. So it's very easy to get referral business. Okay. Now, that has been the model for many, 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 many years. But I will tell you, since COVID, the coaching world has changed. Number one, everybody is now a coach. People who are qualified, people who are unqualified, people who've never been a coach, everybody's a coach. They're a marketing coach. They're a sales coach. They're a LinkedIn coach. Everybody's a coach. But that is not the reality. Very few people can actually master being great coaches. Okay, I have over 15,000 hours of paid coaching. Okay, 15,000 hours. That's a lifetime of coaching clients. Most people out there that call themselves coaches don't have more than 500 hours if they're lucky. Okay, because coaching today is not what it was years ago. It has advanced, but again, it has a very low barrier to entry. Anybody can call themselves a coach, but until you've been paid and hired and paid and hired, and you've spent at least 4 or 5 years in this field mastering your craft, you're not, in my humble opinion, I don't believe you're a very good coach. I used to sit on the board for the International Coaching Federation, and I can tell you, I've met thousands and thousands and thousands of coaches out there, okay, in every country. The ones that really spend the time to master their craft are few and far between. And I used to train a lot of coaches out there for years. I was training the trainers. And there's so many people out there saying, I'm a coach, but they're not really coaches. Okay, so that game changed in COVID because we all had to hide behind a screen, right? I was speaking a lot before COVID. I was doing live speaking engagements. So a lot of my clients came from doing keynote speaking engagements or speaking at companies. And yeah, I was speaking a lot. Let's call it over 100 days a year for probably 6 or 7 years, and in front of a lot of people, big stages, thousands of people, sometimes hundreds. I loved it. And when COVID hit, it put us all behind the screen, and the game changed. So number one, everybody became a coach. Number two, everything became, nothing was in person. I had been teaching at a private university in California for about 5 years. I was teaching leadership, emotional intelligence, coaching for managers, finance, some other stuff. They asked me to go online, and I refused. I was like, no, I like live class. I like being in front of people. So COVID changed the referral system, not for the better. Okay, it changed it for the worse. So now everybody has to be a marketer. Everybody has to use an Instagram strategy or a LinkedIn strategy or a TikTok strategy. Or there's all these things, and create content. You got to create content like crazy. So at 57 years old now, I'm having to jump into that game as well, because you have to create content, you have to stay relevant, people need to see you on multiple platforms. And so I've started that journey because I'm at a stage in my career where I'm only going to pick a few people and certain people to coach every year. I'm not coaching the masses. I'm not doing online courses. I'm not going to spend my money or my time to set up, funnels and all the other stuff. It's just it's a horrible game, and it's filled with spending a lot of money that you don't know if you're going to get a return on your investment with. And every time I see these ads on Instagram and Facebook and all over the place, they're like, hey, we'll take your coaching business to $300,000 a month in 90 days. I roll my eyes, because I've been in the coaching business for 25 plus years. Okay, I have been a $1 million producer in the coaching world. I know what it takes to command $1 million a year or more in coaching. And if you're really coaching, if you're really doing the work and you're really coaching, you can't use these online courses and things to count as coaching. That's not coaching. Coaching is having the interaction between the client and yourself, or a group of clients in peer-to-peer type of situations. But you cannot coach 500 people on a Zoom call at the same time, charge them each $49 and say you're coaching them, because you're not. You're giving them ideas. Okay, you're giving them things to think about. You're giving them things to write down. It's not the same. And and you'll hear a lot of old school coaches like me say that. And part of it is because when the quality comes down, it makes it harder for us to convince people that what we do is valuable. And that's kind of what's happened in the marketplace.
Speaking about value, I'm really curious, because you talked about how the dynamics have really changed, because you mentioned everybody's a coach now. And so how do you think about pricing these things? Because one, coaching feels on the inside, we know the transformation, but sometimes it's hard. I find that coaches have a hard time pricing these things. And two, how do you deal with the whole saturation of the market? In terms of, obviously you don't have to give any hard numbers, but in terms of pricing strategies, what have you gravitated to?
So this is one of the greatest questions of all coaches in the history of coaching. Okay. When I sat on the board for ICF, this was the question that I got more than any other question on every panel I've ever sat on. It's a hard thing, right? And here's why it's hard. If you're doing fitness coaching and you're doing it online, somebody can walk into a gym and hire a trainer for, let's call it $75 an hour. Okay? You're a coach, you're a fitness coach, an online fitness coach. How do you charge more than $75 an hour if your competition of a live person is $75 an hour that somebody can go see once or twice a week, right? So I equate it to, what is your industry that you're coaching in? Okay, so if I'm going to coach attorneys, what does the typical attorney charge for the hour of service that you get from them? What do they charge every 6 minutes? I don't know any attorneys that charge less than $3.50 an hour. Okay, most attorneys, and the ones that I coach and I deal with, are upwards of $500 to $1,500, even $2,500 an hour for their services. Now, if I'm giving them value and I'm going to help them become a better leader, a better owner, a better executive, a better attorney, am I worth less than what they charge? No. So if I'm pricing myself per industry. I'm looking at how much does that, what is the revenue of the business? What is going to be the impactful change that I'm going to have as a coach on that industry? I've had clients that I've charged $250,000 for a year, only coaching one executive, but that's at a multi-billion-dollar corporation. The impact that I have and that person's going to have could be worth billions of dollars to the organization. So if I only charge $250,000, do you think they're getting great value if it moves the needle even 1% for that company? Hell yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I have clients that I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Continue with your client.
Okay. And then I have other clients who are in other industries, or their revenue is not as much, or they're paying for it themselves. And in my very first calls, we do a deep dive on their business so I can understand where they want to go, what they want to do. If it's personal, I don't do life coaching, by the way, because everything is life coaching. So when you're dealing with executives or individual business owners, the crossover of life and business is a given. So I'm an executive coach, I'm a business coach, I'm a strategy coach, I'm an investment banking coach, right? At the end of it, we deal with real life stuff. So everybody in this space is really coaching somebody's life. Okay, so I look at different industries, different revenues, different things to price myself. But I will tell you, I never price myself below $500 an hour, ever. I spent years in school. I spent years getting certifications. I spent years and hours coaching people. I know that I'm very effective at what I do. Most people that have had coaches before, that have let them go and hire me, they tell me all the time, man, my coach never did this. My coach never said that. My coach never got me to this level this quickly. Because I use consultative coaching. I use a different type of coaching that I have perfected over the years. And so I know what my value is. I know what my worth is. So I tell other coaches out there, number one, be observant of the industry that you're coaching in. And number two, price yourself based on the value that you give and the value that you create for the coachee. If they're getting value, they should have absolutely no problem with the price, which is why these days you see all these people selling high ticket offers. Oh, I'm a high ticket. Are you selling a high ticket offer? What does a high ticket offer mean, right?
Subjective.
Yeah, it's subjective, right?
Very subjective.
Some people high ticket is $25,000. Some people high ticket's $1,000. Some people high ticket's $250. Right?
I hate that term. By the
I
way.
do too.
Like,
I think
high
it's
ticket.
stupid. High ticket bullshit.
But it's the only thing that people understand. You know what I mean? Like that's the only reason why I use it, because but it's like the worst term ever.
Oh, I think it's it's disgusting in the marketplace. It's one of those things. And when I talk to coaches and they're like, I have a high ticket offer, I'm like, oh God, really? You got a high ticket offer? Okay, so do I. It's called me. I'm the high ticket offer. I mean, it's just I think it's become slang in the sales and marketing world, but people resonate towards it, and it's something that content creators have put in place to get people psychologically hooked on paying or overpaying for services that, quite honestly, they could learn to do themselves if they just spent an hour or two doing some research.
I want to go back to something earlier you said, right? Like, I just want to make an observation. It's like, I really like how you're using like that value-based models, because I feel like so many times, like when I speak to more beginner coaches, they're pricing hourly, right? They don't know their minimum, by the way. And then like at the highest end, I see people like yourself, right, that are doing value-based. And it's really interesting because I can see all these years of experience coming into play into the fulfillment of the coaching to actually knowing your value. Like knowing your value, you wouldn't know your value after just one coaching engagement. So that's really interesting. I do want to say, go ahead.
Here's the other thing, Kevin. I just want to interject something. So, I don't charge hourly anymore per se. Okay. You asked me what I charge. I value myself at $500 an hour, but I do not do hourly coaching anymore. I haven't done hourly coaching for over 10 years. I am retainer based only. So I figure out how many hours I'm going to spend with a client approximately on a monthly basis, and I have an overage and I have an under, and at the end of the day, I price myself no less than $500 an hour, like I said, but I do it in a retainer manner. So they're going to pay, at a minimum a couple $1,000s a month, upwards of, $20,000 to $25,000 a month, depending on the level, the company. Like I said before, corporate clients, they'll pay a lot more than individual clients all day long, because the corporation absorbs the coaching fees. It has no direct correlation usually on the employee unless the executive or employee is managing their own P&L and they have a budget for their department and they've got an X amount of budget for for coaching or consulting and stuff like that. So like I said, it varies. But for personally, I'm $500 an hour is where my mind is. But I work on retainer. I do not bill people by the hour ever. That's a losing game. The attorneys have lived by that, and so they're stuck on billable hours day after day, week after week, year after year. That's how they judge whether they are profitable or not. Coaching is not like that at all. We don't charge every 6 minutes.
And no one really likes that engagement too. Like the person providing doesn't want to track. The person doesn't want to talk to you. It's like a bad.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Let's say you get in a very deep coaching conversation with somebody and they're struggling with something, and you get to your hour, right? You're like, hey man, we're at our time. Okay, we'll have to pick this up next time. No, that's bullshit. I don't do that. If I'm hot with somebody and we're dealing with something that needs an hour and a half, I don't want to be sitting there punching a time clock on them and them in the back of their mind going, oh my God, I want to get through this, but this is costing me, every 6 minutes is costing me $74, right? Bullshit, man. Fuck that. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. That is, it's not the way to coach. You give your clients what they need within a reasonable timeline. I've had many coaching sessions that started out as a 30-minute call and turns into 3 hours because we get into something that they need to move through. And if I interrupt that time, guess what? We lose the entire momentum of where we were trying to get to. So if you do that by the hour, it sets a different expectation in somebody's mind that I just don't like it. It's just not a good thing. Right. Yeah. So
I do want to ask you this because you are You're quite an experienced coach, obviously, right? Just based off your experience, right? And so I guess in this season of your coaching business, where do you want to take you in this season of life, I guess, like in the next few years?
Well, that's a very interesting question too. I have spent the last 5 or 6 months actually thinking about that. I spend a few months every year in Greece with my family, and that's really downtime for me. And it's usually all summer. I usually go from June until September, October, and this year was especially. It was very thought provoking. My brother died in February this year at 59 years old, and had a heart attack, died instantly, and it wasn't that it was unexpected, but it was not a great situation. But it got me thinking. It got me thinking to this question, exactly what you're saying and what you're asking, and I spent a lot of time thinking about it, contemplating it. I ended up going to Greece twice this year and working through this. And the reality is, Kevin, I don't know. I just love doing what I'm doing. I'm an investment banker and I'm a coach. And I like to invest in people, and I like to invest in companies. And I like to invest in companies that have great people that are willing to be coached. And so I don't know if I'll ever not want to do that. I have a very active mind. I like seeing people progress. I love building organizations. I love seeing people get a massive ROI on their spend. I don't know if that'll ever go away in me. I mean, like I said, I've been working since I was 8 years old. From being a janitor in my dad's business all the way to what I do now, and it's been filled with a lot of fun, but it's also been filled with a lot of pain, and with all the successes, there have been plenty of failures. One of my favorite books ever is John Maxwell's Failing Forward. It's a book that I've read probably 20 times, because the reality is that's what life is. So I'm going to continue doing what I do. I'm going to continue coaching people. I'm going to continue investing as a banker, as long as it keeps me fulfilled. And it's always been fulfilling for me. There's never been a time in my life where I've woken up and said, oh man, I don't want to go into this coaching session. Now, I know a lot of coaches that are like, they wake up in the morning and are like, oh my God, I got 4 clients today. Oh God, this is terrible. I wake up and I look at my schedule. I'm like, God, I have 8 calls today. This is awesome. Because I like doing this. Like, this is what I like to do. I like having conversations with people that move them forward. And that's a huge thing. David Rock is he's a pretty smart dude, and his books on neuro leadership and coaching with the brain and mind are fantastic books, and they've really taught me how to be constantly moving forward and not moving backwards. I'm always going toward something because there's a reward at the end of it. I'm never going backwards. And so when I'm coaching people, I use a lot of those principles of moving forward. And so the question of, where does this take me? Where do I want to be? As long as I'm moving forward and I'm moving towards something, I don't need anything else, to be honest with you. Like, I can make money, anywhere, doing anything. But I love doing this. Like, this is the funnest thing I get to do every day is talk to executives and move the needle. It's awesome.
I love that. With that being said, Mike, how do people find you and connect with you?
Well, I'm all over LinkedIn. That's the easy way. I think my personal cell phone is even on my LinkedIn. Yeah. Let's not. What?
Really?
I don't need an answering service. I don't need a secretary. I don't need a virtual assistant. I don't need any of that crap. Like, if you want to get a hold of me, pick up the phone and call me, text me, say, hey, dude, listen, I saw you on a podcast, or I saw I got your number off your LinkedIn, and we have a conversation. I mean, it's super easy. I have a website. I have two websites. One is ASBizsolutions.com. The other one is alethiavp.com, ALETHIAVP.com. One is my VC firm, and the other one is my coaching and consulting firm. But yeah, you can find me anywhere, man. Like I'm easy to find. You pull me up on Google. My cell number will probably pop up. I don't know. Like, yeah. If you're a bill collector out there and you're listening to this, I'm easily found. Find me, no problem. I ain't running.
Well, Mike, there's so many takeaways from this. I felt like I learned so much on this podcast, but something that really struck me is like you came from blue collar roots, and it's so interesting to see that work ethic carry through even in your coaching business. And I just want to thank you so much just for reminding us about like servant leadership, and also, talking about the hard stuff too, about like pricing and sharing your expertise there as well. I'm sure we could have went like 3 or 4. Yeah.
That's the hardest one, Kevin. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that literally, I get so many coaches that email me and hit me up and they're like, Mike, how do I price myself? That's the $1 million question. And I always go back to the things I told you. It comes down to value and knowing your worth and what you've put into it. And the longer you've done it, and the better you are at it, the more you can charge for it. And if people don't want to pay your price, I will tell you, move on. There's billions of people in the world, and there's millions that need coaching. In fact, everybody needs coaching. It's the greatest gift in the world, is to get coached if you allow yourself to be open to it. And so that value proposition is huge, right? But the last thing, one thing I do want to impress on, yes, I came from very blue collar work environment growing up. And, I reiterate this on every podcast I do and every interview I do. Listen, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to be the most educated person in the room. You don't have to be anything other than two things. You have to be consistent and you have to be relentless. Okay? That's it. And having those work ethic values that I was raised on, I will outwork anybody. Okay, I don't care. You work 8 hours, I'll work 8 hours in 1 minute just to outwork you. That's the mentality I have. It is, I won't be outworked ever. You might have 10 degrees more than me. You might have been to every coaching certification program on the planet, but hey, listen, I get up, pull my pants up every day, and go to work, man. Even the days I don't want to, I do it because that's what winners do. That's what successful people do. And that's what you get from the coaching world if you are open to it. You can change those mindsets and whatever has gone on in your life from the time you were a little kid. And we could do a 3-hour podcast on just the value system you learned from the time you were a little kid, and all this learned behavior and how to rewire it and build new maps and all that stuff, because the reality is our brains are amazing and we can do anything with them. And if you're open to coaching, you give yourself an advantage that other people in the room may never have. So you got to work hard. You got to work smart. You got to be consistent.
It's my really long way of just saying, hey, I appreciate your work. Your work matters. And thank you so much for being on our podcast today. So thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Kevin.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.